Oh, I'm finally here. I made it, Freedom Seekers. How are you doing? Okay, yes, this is my weekly live review and it's my weekly report. And I know I normally try to get these in here live between 8 and 8:30 every week on Monday, but I surely am running late tonight. I looks like about 5 minutes behind 8:30, and so I'll just chat away for a moment or two to see if anybody jumps on here and joins me. But Freedom Seekers, I've got just an exciting uh, bit of material to go over with you tonight, and I guess just in getting started here, I usually, well, the first 5 minutes back, if you're just joining me and watching the video here, if you want to kind of miss all the jibber jabber that goes on the beginning part of the video, then go ahead and fast forward to the first 5 or 6 minutes until I get into the real information, the real content, the real meat of what I'm covering tonight. But I come here every week and I spend the first 5 or 6 minutes just chatting and waiting to see if anybody joins us to come on live with me. And then I go in and I talk about some specific topics. Tonight I'm going to be talking on specifically about transformation of your life, and to help you to be able to create a life that you love the most. And I'll be getting into that the most in a moment or two here. But really, I want to lay out some specific details that I've kind of hit on them a little bit in the previous weeks. And but today I'm going to pull it all together and just make it really, really strong and really clear for you. And one of the things that I'm doing is that I'm going through my own transformation in my life and my own liberation. And that's really what we're here to help you with, to transform and liberate your life. The liberation and transformation some of you may be going through is in your relationships or in your sex life. Particularly if you're living a monogamous life, or if you're cheating, and you want to live an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life, that you just end up having a life that you just wake up every day and loving it more and more every single day. And so that's what I want to help you to be able to do, is to liberate your life. But not just in your sex life, in your relationships, but also want to help you to liberate your health. Because in our health and in our wellness, we become dependent. And so I don't go into that so much here in this weekly report, because I really want to help to make sure that you're first sexually and liberated in the relationships that you have, so that you can be having the dream life, the life that you dream to have when it comes to your sex and your relationship. And then we also have other programs. Then we do talk about your health and wellness, and because our society, everything is in our society. If you follow the norms of society, it points you to dependence in your health. It's not a healthcare system that we have in the United States. It's a dependent care system, and that it creates dependence out of people, keeps you going back to the doctor for prescription medications and checkups and all this kind of stuff, and it doesn't free you and liberate you at all. And so we want to help you to become liberated from this dependent care system that we have going on in our medical system. Because your body desires and wants to be well, and there are ways that your body can be well. You've got to take personal responsibility for that, though, and not just run off to the doctor, because your doctor is going to make you dependent. You think those doctors go to medical school for all the years that they do and come out hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt just so that they can take and make you well? Are you kidding me? They teach them well in medical school how to create a thriving practice so that you become dependent on them and you keep coming in their door ringing the cash registers. That's what our whole pharmaceutical industry is directed to. And our pharmaceutical industry is really the biggest subsidy. They provide more money to the medical colleges and the medical schools out there than any other industry. And so it's those pharmaceutical industries that also helps those medical schools to teach those doctors dependency. And the doctors, they all go there with really a good intention. And even after they get out, they've got good intention. But like anybody else, money ends up taking over. And so that's one of the things, that's another part of what we do, is to help you to liberate yourself from the dependent care that we have in our whole society. And then another part is to liberate yourself financially, because again, we become dependent on a paycheck, you know, and I've been self-employed most of my life. And so, you know, even me being self-employed, being my own boss, I was still dependent on a paycheck. You know, just that I wrote the check and signed the check, but I was very dependent on that. And so that's where my liberation right now is, and that is to liberate my life from being dependent on trading my time for dollars and making a living that way. And I want to help you to liberate yourself, to find some ways where you can then stop trading your time for dollars and liberate yourself financially. And so we'll be talking more about that in the weeks to come, because I'm really developing a great program for you. And I'll be talking more about that in weeks to come, but not tonight, you know. And so tonight, then, we're going to just talk to you about how the foundation of transformation and liberation, to be able to transform your life so that you can have a liberated life, and what the foundation is to that. Because it's the very same thing when I transformed my marriage from monogamy to non-monogamy some 13 years ago. Then it's the very same principles, the same process. Everything is the same that's involved in what I'm doing today to transform and liberate my life, even though instead of transforming my sexual life and transforming my relationship, I am liberating my financial life, whereas before I was liberating my sexual life and transforming my relationship. And so now I'm liberating my financial life and transforming my work. And so, you know, that's where I'll report to you about my progress and what things that I'm doing, but then that relates directly to you in transforming your relationships so that you can liberate yourself sexually. And so let's go ahead. Oh, before I get started, let me get rid of this. Anybody guess what this is? Any clue? Any guess? You know, let me just get in here with this in front of the camera. There we go. You got to be really careful with this. Yeah, that's a. It looks like a spoon, but you see, it's coated with this amazing chocolate. And so the story, real quick, behind that is that a number of years ago, I got into making chocolate from the bean, which chocolate is made from a plant. It's called cacao, and it's a bean that's basically in the tropical areas. And then they take those beans and then they end up making chocolate out of them. And there are, in the United States, there's about today, I think it's about 250 what they call bean to bar commercial chocolate makers. And those 250 bean to bar commercial chocolate makers, then you know, they have basically little chocolate shops and little chocolate factories. And so a number of years ago, got around to learning all about this, and I met probably a third of the chocolate makers that were in the United States, and learned from them, and just had a really great time. I invested a couple $1,000s in buying equipment, and so that I could make my own chocolate. It's really fun to do. And during COVID-19, it's a great thing to do, because we're really not, in a way I'm not, and my partner here with me in Seattle and my partner in California, we don't feel comfortable going out very much. And so we pretty much stay put, even though we don't have to be sheltered in place still, but we still shelter ourselves in place. And so I suggested to my partner here, Chris, in Seattle, that, you know, when we dig out the chocolate making equipment, we haven't made chocolate in 5 years. And so it's just very exciting to now, this spoon, I dipped it in it's a machine called conching. The chocolate is now in the process of conching. It does that for 24 to 48 hours. You have to know by just taste. Boy, that's good. It's just getting better and better by the hour. Right now, it's been conching for about 18 hours. And so it's got, 24, 18, that's about 6 more hours to go. I turned the machine off because it's very loud. And so it'll finish up tomorrow. And yeah, it's just pure indulgent chocolate. This particular chocolate, it's a bean from Peru. And sorry about this. I'm making a big mess with it, but I'll not have both hands to use, I guess, because that one's just loaded with chocolate. And I'll just have to keep it off the keyboard here. And so, but yeah, it's a bean from Peru. And so there's a lot involved in making chocolate. And I'm going to be making a video on that, and I'll release that at some point later. And I'll tell you about that so you can watch it on my YouTube channel. I dripped here a little bit on the table, but so this is 75% dark chocolate and no bitter taste even right now. And it'll continue to smooth out and even get better by conching it. Once you reach the 24-hour point, then we pay close attention to how much longer you can end up conching it. It draws out different flavors and textures the longer you go. And so you have to make a decision. Is this, do I dare go any farther? Because it may not get any better than this, or do I take a chance and go farther? You can conch for up to about 5 days. And so that's like 120 hours, but 24 hours is where you start checking it. And so now this is just so good. I'm really excited about this. It's been a lot of fun too. And so I'll just do a shout out to Chris and thank her for jumping in on this with me. And that's something that we enjoy doing together. And I hope you'll look forward to that video as it comes out in a couple of weeks. Okay, so let's go ahead and then and switch my screen as I do every week and share my computer screen with you and get on with the material for tonight. Okay, and so we're doing here tonight the weekly wrap-up video report and talking to you about how to transition and thrive in an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life that you create and love the most. And the process in doing that is to live a liberated life, not a life where it's locked down and dependent on, like when I was monogamous with my first wife before we opened our marriage, we didn't live a liberated life. We lived a restricted life, and a life where, there was a lot of limitation. But then even when we opened our marriage, even then, because there's still a lot of people that live a non-monogamous life. And that's where, even if you're living already an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life, then I'm here to speak to you every week, as well as being here every week to speak to the people who are living a monogamous life and to speak to people who are living in basically secretly, they're cheating. And so I'm here to speak every week to those people, because like when my wife and I opened our marriage, one of the processes, one of the steps that we went through and we did is that we went out and talked to people. There were ethically and consensually non-monogamous. Some were swingers, and some were polyamorous. Some had friends with benefits. Were married couples that once in a while they like to have threesomes and things like that. All different kinds of different scenarios and situations. And we just found that because really they didn't know it, and we didn't know it at the time either, but I've been able to think back and analyze things over the years. And because we're all so heavily steeped into a monogamous and what I call a heteronormative and a mononormative culture, that when we move into our ethical and consensual non-monogamous life, we still create some of the same levels of limitations and some of the same levels of dysfunction in our lives that we had in monogamy. And it comes from the fact that they don't really understand how to liberate their life by changing the norms in their life. And so our desire then and interest is to help you to live a liberated life. And you do that by creating a magnetic elf life. And I hope that you want to have an elf life, and just keep that in mind every day, that I want to have an elf life. Well, what is an elf life? It's a life that is easy. Why would you want a hard life? You see, I lived a hard life for many years. Now, yes, I had success and stuff, but it was a hard life. And I even would tell women when I get into a relationship with them that, yeah, I have a great life in some aspects, but it's a hard life because I struggle with many of the things, and it's not an easy life by any means. But then one day I was challenged by that and said, well, why do you end up having a life that's hard and difficult? Because after all, you talk about you create your own life. You create your own reality. And I had to really sit back, and basically they called me on my shit. And I had to really sit back, and I thought about that. And I realized that, yes, my life, the difficulty I have in my life and being a hard life is because that's what I created. And so I had to start to learn how to create a life that is easy. And then part of that, again, then the central focus of what we want to do is to help you to liberate your life. Liberate your life so that your sex life is liberated, and your relationships are wonderful. And then your, like I said, health and your financial life right along with that is all liberated as well. But then the last thing is that, see, one of the things, when I was a little kid, 6 years old, I was made officially the man of the house. I was the little man, and I had a younger sister that was a year and a half younger than me, and I had an older sister that was a year and a half older than me. And I was given the responsibility at the age of 6 of watching out for my sisters. And I have carried that responsibility in my whole life. But starting at the age of 6, it really stripped me of my childhood. And so at that point, life became about, making sure that I was looking after and taking care of my sisters, and not really living my life for me. I was living my life for my sisters and watching out after them. And that went all the way through school. And then I get out of school and they, get married, and I go on with my life and I get married and all. But still throughout my whole adult life, that carried on. And so the thing is about that is that I really didn't know how to have a lot of fun. And so at one point, I particularly when I got to my ethically and consensually non-monogamous life 13 years ago, I had to come to grips with that and realize that I really needed to have a fun life. Not a life that was hard and difficult and just full of responsibilities and obligations, but a life that was fun and that was easy. And so I had a lot that I needed to liberate in my life. And so that's why now I call that having an elf life, where it's easy, it's liberated, and it's fun. And I still work on that, you see, and that's why it's like the whole thing with the chocolate. It's easy for me just to focus and be involved in my work because I love the work that I do. And yes, I find that enjoyable and I find it rewarding. I find it fun. But, too much work is not made for a fun guy, particularly when you're in a relationship with multiple women that would like to have a little bit of my attention and want to have some fun with me. And so I have to make sure that I take a step back once in a while. And that's why then I sat down with Chris and we looked at our calendar and said, well, for the time that I'm going to be here in Seattle before I head back to Ventura, what are the things that we're going to do? We went camping at the nudist club, and that was a lot of fun. But Chris took time off from her job to do that. And so now we are obviously back from that. Been back from that for now a couple of weeks, and it's like, okay, well, what else are we going to do? We can, watch movies every week, which we love watching movies, and we do that, and we enjoy that. And but again, we're not going out dancing. We're not going out clubbing. We're not going out and getting into with seeing a bunch of people and stuff like that. We're very cautious with COVID. She sees her daughter once a week, who then even then they keep distance and they wear a mask and all these kinds of things. And so like, what are we gonna do for fun? This whole COVID virus can really turn you into a dull person. So it'll only turn you into a dull person if that's what you end up creating. Just like I used to create a life that was hard and difficult. And so you have choices available to you. And so for me, that is like, yeah, we haven't made chocolate in 5 years. And we had all the supplies, everything we needed right here to do that with. We just had to kind of get all the equipment out. It's quite a few pieces of equipment, and then get the supplies of the cocoa beans and the cocoa butter and then the organic sugar, and get all the supplies out, and then start learning how to make chocolate again, and using our memories and going back to our mentor and asking our mentor things to find out, and so it's like we're now making chocolate, and so by the end of next week we'll have made probably enough chocolate to make 100 standard size chocolate bars, and I'm very excited about that. You've got to have some fun, okay? And so, and what this all leads to then is that having a life which has more satisfaction and pleasure in it. Every day, does that day bring you more satisfaction and pleasure or less satisfaction and pleasure? Because if you're finding that, some days bring you more satisfaction and pleasure, some days bring you less satisfaction and pleasure, you're probably not getting very far in your life in creating the life that you love the most. And so you want to be able to take and create a life that is having more satisfaction and pleasure, and that's what we're going to get into tonight. And part of that for me, and I hope it is for you as well, is to have a life where you have more sex with more people more often. And so you ask yourself this test: is this increasing the satisfaction and pleasure in your life every day? The things that you encounter, or at the end of the day, did my day today, did it increase the satisfaction and pleasure I have in my life? Or did it just keep it on par kind of level, or did it go up and down throughout the course of the day, or was it really kind of just heading back in the wrong direction? And so we're going to talk about then how to get that to where you can then more consistently be able to answer that question. Yes, I am increasing the satisfaction and pleasure in my life and moving in the direction of having a liberated life, creating a magnetic elf life, and I'll be talking more about the magnetic part in other videos, and then having more satisfaction and pleasure with having more sex with more people more often. Okay, let's get on then and get to this material here that I've got prepared. You see that this is what we call an energetic creative structure. And that we've talked about the problem-solving structure in the last couple of weeks in the videos that we've made. The problem-solving structure is one way that is very common in creating a life, but that doesn't help you to keep your life moving in a direction that's satisfactory. It keeps you oscillating, going back and forth and on this roller coaster. Sometimes then, as you get older, it actually starts to go downhill. And that's where the saying comes, it's all downhill from here. And for some people, that's from the age of 40 on. Other people, that's from the age of 50 on. And usually before they get to 60, they've reached that place where it's just all downhill from here. And so we talk about then, or I talk about creating an energetic creative structure. And that is to think and know for yourself, what do you want to create in your life for a better future? Go ahead and take a moment now and write that down. I'll wait for you. What do you want to create in your life for a better future? And think about what is it that you want to create in your life for a better future sexually. So I reached that point, when I was 47 years old, that I finally decided I am not going to live the rest of my life with the limited sexual frustrations and misery that I was experiencing at that point in my life. And I decided I wasn't going to live the rest of my life like that. And so I decided that I wanted to create a better future for myself sexually, which then I went to my wife, and when I was 48 years old, and talked to her about having an open marriage where she could have sex with other people and I could have sex with other people. And I won't talk in great detail about that because I've talked plenty about that in other videos. But so what do you want to create in your life for a better future sexually? And how's that then going to impact your relationships? Because you need to liberate your relationship for that to happen. And then what do you want to create in your life for a better future with your health? You see, because when I created that ethical and consensual non-monogamous life with my wife, I realized that I had turned into some big old fat boy and didn't have the health I wanted to be able to have the sex that I'd be able to have. And it had been going downhill for a long time. And so I had to turn that around. And so I had to realize I needed to create a better future for my life with my health and wellness. And so kind of got that all turned around. Those are the two areas. I mean, I'm 13 years into this journey, and those are the two areas that I've got turned around, and I'm really pleased with the progress. It's not, like the ideal of where I'm wanting to go. That's why we help you create a life where you're always wanting more enjoyment and from the satisfaction and pleasure. So you got more satisfaction and more pleasure. And so certainly I want more satisfaction and pleasure in both my health and my sex life and the relationships that I have. But then, of course, then you reach the place where it says, okay, now how about your financial place? And that's where I'm at right now, is then realizing that, yeah, I want to create a life for myself that is better in the future financially. And I'll be talking to you about some of the things that I'm doing, not tonight so much, but in the weeks to come, where I want to help 1,000 people that live ethically and consensually non-monogamous lives. I want to help 1,000 people to be financially liberated. That's where then they have lives that are not dependent on a paycheck anymore. And I was talking to a guy a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and about this, and he got so interested in my program. He said, "Well, how can I get involved with this?" And I said, "You can't, because he doesn't live an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life." And so that's what I told him. I said, I will only take and work with people that live ethically and consensually non-monogamous lives, because that's all I want. It's my choice, and that's all I want to work with. And so then the thing is, in creating your life, you have to understand that there are filters that events that come to us. Everything comes to us. Just think of anything, any stimulation, any input, anything that comes to you, it comes to you as an event. For instance, I like to use the example, this makes it pretty clear, of the event of a dog barking. Now, the event of a dog barking, then for some people, that's a joyful thing. Where, it's like, hey, I hear these dogs and I just love dogs. Other people, they just kind of ignore it. And so it just passes on through their filters. Other people, then that causes fear. And so when anything that comes, any event that comes to us, it first comes to us as information. And then with that information, we have a whole series of filters in our brain that that information is filtered through. And then once it gets filtered through that whole series of filters, then it becomes interpreted. And that's where then we decide whether we can just ignore it or we need to do something about it. And then our body has physiological chemicals that it pours into our body and helps us to realize how we need to respond. Those physiological chemicals then can get us jittery and anxious and scared and nervous, or they can get us really happy because we love dogs and haven't been around dogs for a long time, or it can just be neutral. And so we have physiological chemicals then that go on that actually then take and help to determine what our behavioral response is. And it's the behavioral response that's important, because that's all that really counts when it comes to whatever the event is, whether that event is having sex or talking to your partner about opening your relationship, or the changes that I'm making about my financial future. And it all comes down to then the behaviors and actions that we take. And so you get to choose the filters that you see life through. And once you understand this, then you start to realize that you can stop and pause. And like when you hear that dog barking, whatever that dog might be to you, you know, that dog, maybe you see this beautiful woman that you'd like to have sex with, or this hunk of a man that you'd like to have sex with, and you're with your partner and you're running through your filters, is like, oh man, that person really gets me hot. Well, you get to then choose the filters that you see life through. Are you going to see life through the filters of a monogamous person that says, better not look at that, or do not want to get caught looking at that, or a cheater which says, man, that's really good, I just won't let my partner know, or the filter of an ethically and consensually non-monogamous person that says to your partner, says, will you look at that person, turns me on. I'd like to, and I've done this. I'd like to go over and talk with that person, and who knows, see where I can get with that person, you know, and maybe I can get a phone number, maybe I can get a name, maybe I invite them over, if these are before COVID times, invite them over to our table for a drink, just have a conversation with another couple, or with 4 or 5 people at a table I've had conversations with, and open up conversations. And so we get to choose the filters that we see life through. And you can see your life through a monogamous filter, through the filters of a person who's a cheater, dishonest, not trustworthy, things like that, deceptive, or see your life through the filter of a person that's ethically and consensually non-monogamous. And if you'll take and start to choose seeing your life through a person that is the filters of ethically and consensually non-monogamous, then that's a big step right there. Just like for me, that big step is seeing my life through the filters of being someone that has a wonderful income coming into me on an ongoing basis, that is not dependent upon me trading my time for money, and also not dependent on me being any place at any particular time. It's done through the internet, through the computer, and it just keeps coming in. And so a couple other areas that you get to see, choose as to the filters that you see life through: scarcity versus abundance. You see, our monogamous culture is full of scarcity. You know, that's when you think about it. Our monogamous culture is based upon, you find your one and only. One and only. You know, and then if that one and only doesn't work out, guess what? Suddenly, it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Because we think in the terms of scarcity. And that's why we find rejection, and why we find change in relationships so hard. We take it personally, very personally. You know, it's like, oh, I don't want to be lonely the rest of my life. This conversation I got into recently with someone that, you know, is single again, didn't think that at this point in their life they'd be single. Ended up, they got broke, the girlfriend broke up after a 13-year relationship, and thought that was going to be good. And it turned out, though, that something wasn't right, and the person ended up breaking up, and so now the person's single again. And in the world of scarcity, you start thinking, oh, will I ever find another relationship that's that wonderful and that's great? Am I too old now? You know, all these kinds of things. Instead of realizing that it doesn't matter how old you are or where you're at in life, but this abundant world that we live in. And there's lots of possibilities, lots of opportunities, lots of options available to you. But you get to choose what filter that you see that event through, scarcity or abundance. When I, you know, again, this will be post-COVID, and not, or when I was COVID season, but when I would go out, I always look for the abundance around me, and I go out to have a really good time, just enjoying my time. I happen to really enjoy women, and so I just enjoy my time looking at women. Now, that's not necessarily so much here in Seattle, because Chris is monogamous, and I want to respect her, and so it's much harder for her if I am out there flirting with other women and trying to even connect with other women and things of this nature. So I really enjoy my relationship with Chris, and so I respect that, and so I certainly alter my behavior a little bit, but I still make sure that my mindset is one of abundance. And so then the next thing is you get to choose what filters that you're going to have. Are you going to have a filter of struggle versus opportunity? That's where I learned that, going back to what I said earlier, that I used to say that my life was hard, it was difficult, there was a lot of struggle in it. Instead of opening up the doors to more choices and more opportunities, and that was like, well, did I have to have a life that was hard and difficult? Where's my opportunity in that? And I started to learn, that's a thing that I say often now. When people bring up something, that just they're struggling with, and I ask them, I says, where is your opportunity in this? People that I'm in conversation with about, jealousy, for instance, and I'll say, where is your opportunity in this? People I get into conversations with about the difficulties they have seeing their partner either dating or having sex or in love with someone else. I say, well, where's your opportunity in this? And not for the opportunity for your partner who's dating or having sex or anything like that, but where's your opportunity in this? Because we all have that choice to make, where we then can have a lot of opportunity for our personal growth and development, and makes us a better person. Another filter that we get to choose is, do we see things as being doom, or do we have optimism about it? And that certainly hits home now with COVID. With COVID, I hear all the time, there's probably not a day that goes by that I'm not seeing people out there or hearing people out there or reading things that it just seems that people are talking about how it's doom, it's terrible. That's even when people that are like, I feel bad for people that are single in COVID, but they're sitting at home and they're horny. But, they can have so they're struggling because they're horny. And going back here, though, what's your opportunity in that? And the opportunity in that is to learning how to create a structure for yourself that is still going to enable you to screen people and meet people and have sex with people without putting yourself or them or anybody else at risk. And so that's the opportunity. And yes, that opportunity, it is doable. And so then we come down near the doom versus optimism. Once you realize that you have these opportunities, then you have optimism. And so when you look at those three things, you can have a life that has filters in it that are scarcity-based, that are struggle-based, and that are doom-based. Or you can have filters that are abundance-based, opportunity-based, and optimism-based. And so you do not get to choose or control what happens around you, like COVID. Who could control that, right? But you do get to choose the mindset that determines how this is going to turn out for you. And I determined that when COVID first came along, because I knew at that time, and I've been saying it since March, this is going to take us 2 years. I was supposed to be in February. I was supposed to leave for the Philippines, and I was looking forward to that trip. And my plane ticket got canceled a week before that trip, and so that really changed a lot in my world. And but and I could have taken a position of doom at that point, but no, I just took a position of optimism, and I realized that this virus, because I know a little bit about at that point, even early on in March, I knew things about what was going on that a lot of people that didn't understand. And in part because of my military background as a biological defense specialist. And so I knew that this virus was going to be with us for 2 years. So I said, okay, it's going to be with us for 2 years. Now, what is my opportunity in this? Oh man, this is going to be great because I'm going to have such a wonderful opportunity to shift my income from being dependent on showing up to go to work, so to speak, just like you, most of you, to being able to take and liberate my income. And I'll be able to take the next 2 years to do that. And I'm just very excited about that. And so you get to choose how your mindset is going to be in regard to things, and that'll determine how it's going to turn out for you. Now, that mindset creates an energy. And that energy goes out, I believe, a lot about universal energy. And that energy goes out like a radar, like radar waves. And those waves will determine what shows up in your life, the people that come along and you connect with, and what shows up in your life. And sure enough, since March, I've had so much show up in my life with the objective of freeing my life and liberating my life with financial abundance. It's been amazing. And so much opportunity has come to me. But you see, one of the things, just like I was talking to my partner, Chris, the other day, and that is that you get into these different mindsets, places, and suddenly you're able to see opportunities and choices for you that they're there already, but you just can't see them. Or they come to you suddenly because your energy changes. It's that radar that goes out. It's what I call magnetic energy, where that radar is going out and it's drawing you to the things and the people and the things that are going to give you more satisfaction and pleasure in your life. And so that mindset creates an energy that goes out like a radar wave. Just remember that. Now bring an example of that is people I see all the time. Every week I read about them and I hear about them where they bring their life to a halt because of the pandemic. And that's kind of like taking a stopwatch and stopping the watch in order to save time. You save time by taking your cell phone and stopping the clock on it. Is that going to save you time? And so you can't bring life to a halt even when the pandemic comes. Life is going to tick on. It's going to move on. So ask yourself, where is the opportunity in this for you right now, right here? And you'll find it. You'll begin to find it with that energy. And once you find it, then it's up to you to move into the transformation process by laying out your next steps to move you in the direction of where you want to go. And so let's talk about the process that we lay out. And I teach, this is the total focus of my coaching practice when I have people that I'm coaching. And so I'm kind of dipping into that a little bit for you tonight. And that is that there's 3 fundamentals that you have to go through. And that is first to reframe, and then secondly, transform, and thirdly, liberate. Let's first go through the reframing. And that is you're stretching and exercising your mental and emotional muscles. In order for me to transition from a monogamous life to a non-monogamous life, for me to transition from a financial life where I'm dependent on showing up to a life where it's liberated and the money just keeps growing and keeps abundantly coming to me, then I had to stretch and exercise my mental and emotional muscles on how to get there and how to do that. I had to be able to be okay with failing sometimes and falling down sometimes and trying things that don't work to find things that do work. I certainly did that with my transition with my wife from monogamy to non-monogamy. Be willing to fall down a little bit and pick myself up and go forward again and talk with her some more and there's that goes on. And so stretching and exercising your mental and emotional muscle. And then using new information to shift to new ideas, thinking, and seeing a different way that opens doors of new opportunities, and in fact, give a person many more options than before. A changed perspective is a changed life. And then reframe your personal energy. Now, your personal energy is your word, your thoughts, and your feelings. And so you've got to reframe your personal energy. For me, it was reframing my words and my thoughts and my and my feelings about what I thought about having sex with more than just one person, and what I thought about having communication with my wife about having sex with more than one person, and what my feelings were. Did I want to, or could it be possible I'd fall in love also with someone else besides my wife? And so you have to reframe your personal energy, which is your words, your thoughts, and your feelings. And then you reframe your sexual energy. Your sexual energy, like I know I have met people that they're afraid to move into the world of non-monogamy because they feel inadequate. What if, particularly happens with guys, what if I just can't perform good enough? Go out there and have sex with another woman and find out that she doesn't find me satisfying, and then there's like, well, what if I get STIs? You have to reframe your sexual energy and learn how to protect yourself from things like STIs. And like reframe your sexual energy, like, oh my God, what if I feel jealousy or possessiveness or clinginess or any of these kinds of things? And you start to reframe your mind and your emotions for these things. So you reframe until you are in harmonic balance. In harmonic balance, I don't have time tonight to go into this very much, but you instead of being like on a roller coaster, or instead of oscillating, go forward and back and forward and back, you want to be able to take and bring harmony to all of your energies. That's your word, your thoughts, and your feelings. Where you can have words, for instance, where you're saying one thing, but then you're really feeling and thinking something different. Or you can have thoughts. This happened to me as I went through the transition phase myself. You can have thoughts, or the reframing, and then to the transition. You have thoughts that are different than your words and your feelings. So you're out of harmonic balance. You're out of harmonic balance with your sexual energy. You want to have sex, but then you are afraid because you're insecure, or you feel like you might be inadequate, or you fear rejection, and these kinds of things. So you're out of harmonic balance. You need to bring all those energies in balance. And so once you go through the reframing process, then you're ready for the transformation process. Transformation, the biggest opportunities show up during times of greatest uncertainty. That was certainly the case of me moving my relationship from monogamous to non-monogamous. There was a lot of uncertainty with that, but the greatest opportunity showed up in that time. And now the greatest opportunity is showing up for me financially in this time of uncertainty. And that'll certainly be true for you. The transformation is really where you start walking the walk. Remember the harmonic balance I talked about? You walk in the walk, you're talking the talk, you own it, and you're being authentic and congruent in your life. You're not doing one thing and saying another thing. You're not saying one thing and feeling another thing. You're not thinking one thing and saying or doing another thing. You start walking the walk, talking the talk, you own it, and you be authentic and congruent in your life. You choose an option. You see, because like I said, once you change your energy and you get your energy in harmonic balance, then more options will open up to you. Options that you couldn't see before, but they were right there, or they drew in you. They were brought into you because of your change in energy. Your magnetism pull them into your life. And it could be options in the way of people. It could be options in the way of things or activities. Maybe somebody invites you to go to a sex party. That would be an activity. And so you have more options that start opening up to you. And that was with Chris. She got told about a sex party. And she'd been widowed for a couple of years, and she was horny and hadn't had sex. And she says, yeah, maybe I'll check out that sex party. And that's how we ended up hooking up and meeting. Not at the party. We had actually met through the group that was promoting the party, and I had posted an introduction in that group, and she read it, and then she contacted me, and we went off to the party together. And so, your options start to open up, and those options, they start to open up, and you have to choose an option so you can take an impactful, personal, life-changing actions, and knowing how to make the best choice from available options. And then you transform your personal energy. What is your next overriding, or what is your overriding desire, and what are your 3 next steps to get you there? You transform your sexual energy. What is your overriding desire and your next 3 steps to get there? And you must act then in order to get the things that you want. You certainly can't be like the guy who stands, there's an old proverb that says, man who stands on the edge of a cliff with open mouth waiting for roast duck to fly in will go very hungry. You can't stand there on the edge of a cliff waiting and hoping that a roast duck's going to fly in. We do that so often. I see so many people out there that they treat their sexual energy that same way. It's like, well, I want to have sex, but they don't take the right actions to really be able to have the sexual life that they want. And so you need to figure out what those 3 steps are and then take those actions. Because what you want is not going to show up doing the same things that you did in the past. What are the 3 steps that will transform your future? And be willing to make mistakes doing that. You don't have to be perfect. That's the thing, is that you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody is perfect. And if you're unwilling to take risk and make mistakes, you're not going to ever move forward in any area of your life that you really want to, that's really important, that matters. But once you start being willing to fail and make mistakes and move your life forward, then you'll be able to say, okay, here's my next steps. If they don't work, I'll try something else. That certainly has been my experience. If you've followed me now for 12 weeks, I think we're in on this process on my videos, that, yeah, I've taken steps that have failed. Oh, okay. What's going to be my next step, you see? And so you want to write down your next 3 steps. Go ahead and write them down now. And I'm going to not wait for you like I'd hope to have time to, but you can pause the video and then write those steps down. Okay? Now, the next thing to do, the thing to do next is to move forward. In order to move forward, is to take an immediate action on those steps, or you'll end up finding all kinds of excuses for yourself as your fears and your doubts and you're overthinking it. They'll all start to come in and bombard you. And so you really need to make sure that that first step that you end up taking is something you can take immediate action on, not something like, one of my steps to getting to where I'm going is making $1,000, my first $1,000. Well, but see, I can't expect that to show up tomorrow. And so I have to have steps of action that I can then take in the process, and that'll keep those steps of action moving me forward. And so make sure that your next step is an action that you can take right away, because otherwise all kinds of excuses and fears and doubts and overthinking it, they're all going to set in and take over. So you go through that, and you'll get to the liberation phase. And I want to ask you then, how does that liberation feel? You know, imagine whether, let's say you want to be sexually liberated, you want to be able to have more sex with more people more often. Imagine how that feels, not the sexual feelings, but just how fulfilling that feels inside you of saying, I'm here, I did it. I'm having more sex with more people more often, and now that's the future for me. How does that feel? If it's your health that you're working on, then ask yourself, how does that feel to have more health and wellness so that you can then have more sex with more people more often? If it's your weight, how does that feel? If it's your finances, financial liberation, how does that feel? You want to feel it, you want to see it, and you want to be it. Not wait until you get there. If you have to wait until you get there, it'll never happen. You want to feel it, see it, and be it now. Imagine somebody that's insecure, introverted, really super self-conscious of themselves, where they just don't feel confident at all. And so the thing is, though, that person wants to have more sex with more people more often. And so they keep going out there and presenting themselves in the way that they are. No, because they're not going to start having more sex with more people more often that way. What they have to do first is, that's part of the reframing process, is that they start to feel it, they start to see it, and they start to be it, more confident, more self-assured, more sexual energy. That's why I love to flirt when I'm out chatting with people. Someone who has the confidence to walk right up to a woman that I just used to take and just drop my jaw like, oh man, look at her. But walk right up and just say, hey, my name is Mark, and I was noticing you over there, and I don't know if you're like here by yourself, or if you are with someone, or if you are married or single, and even if you're married and single, whether you're available, because I'm not single, but I'm available. And so I don't know what your situation is, but I figured it just wouldn't hurt to come on over and ask, because I'd really like to find out a little more about you. And then you can either get rejected or you can get a positive response. Now, rejection is not bad. Again, because I live in an abundant world. If you're living in a scarce world, then it's like, oh my God, I got rejected. That was the one person. That was the one. No, I live in an abundant world. That just means that that person wasn't right for what I'm wanting. And that's great. I'm glad I found that out. I want to find that out as quickly as I can. And so we move on to the abundance in my world and in my life, not to the scarcity. So you want to feel it, you want to see it, and you want to be it. And so liberate your life from conformity and dependence with the knowledge and skills to use throughout the rest of your life, moment by moment, creating a life that you love the most, bringing you to the most satisfaction and pleasure. Now, in going through this, I realized that this 3 columns like this would be better reverse it. So it was like the reframe, transforming, and liberate were on the left-hand column, and then it had the points under them. So I'll be redoing that, and I'll just briefly show that maybe the next week. I won't be going to spend a lot of time going over it, but I'll redo it, and so that you can then have that on the video and pause that. If I had a little more time, I don't right now, but I'd be making a place for you to be able to go and get that online for free. And so maybe I'll be able to do that and provide a link to it. But I want you to be able to have that information, because that's such a critical part of your transformation. And so let's do a revealing telling exercise. And I want to conclude with this and challenge you to write down what the life is that you really want to create, your overriding desire. And that's just exactly what I go over each week in the structure that I use. And I'll be hitting on that here in just a moment. I do it every week. And then the next thing is to write down what exactly did you do last week to make progress on that life that you want to create to have a better future than the one you have right now. What did you do last week? See, most of us don't pay any attention to this kind of stuff, and that's why our lives go nowhere. That's how we get to be 40 years old and hasn't really gone anywhere. We get to be 50 years old, and again, we haven't gone anywhere. We get to be 60 years old, and we've not gone anywhere in our sex lives, in our liberating our relationships, liberating our health, liberating our finances. In fact, it's oftentimes not that they don't go anywhere. Like I got to be, age 40, 48, and my sex life wasn't going just kind of leveled out. It was just, it was degrading. Maybe yours is. My relationship was suffering because of it. And my relationship was degrading because I had my wife and I, we just didn't have the right energy. But once we turned that around and we opened our marriage up, it really started to improve a lot because we started to communicate differently and talk about things differently. And so it stopped to degrade and turned around. My health, I've talked about before, how I started to then, it was degrading and I turned that around. And my financial world is now the thing that I'm working on now. And so write down what exactly did you do last week to make progress on that life that you want to create in order to have a better future than the one that you have. And then write down, what did you do the week before that? That's 2 weeks ago. What did you do the week before that? Write it down. What did you do? You see, and that's part of my reporting process. I report to my coach every week. And these things, I have to write them down. And I come here and I make these videos every week as well. Because that helps me. Even if I failed and didn't completely, fully accomplish my objective last week, and I'm pretty tough on myself and give myself a fail, but most of my fails are positive things. Because I've learned and I know how to succeed on failure. You just keep moving along from one failure to the next, to the next, and the next, and the next. But then what happens is that 10 weeks down the road, you're so much farther than you were 10 weeks ago. And that certainly is a lot better than to be in that pattern of just oscillating, going up and down, and roller coasters, and all the kinds of just being stuck like you're in quicksand and you just can't go any farther. And so let's go ahead and get on with the weekly report then. And so the weekly report, and this is where the first step here, going back to these questions, you see, the first question then is to write down what the life is that you really want to create. What is your overriding desire? And that's where I start then with my weekly report every week. My overriding desire is to create an ongoing online passive income of $5,000 per month from 5 e-commerce stores. And so I've got the store, the homenudist.com. And so last week, I've continued to move forward a little bit in that every week. It's not something, this is going to take me, for to get that $5,000 a month, that may take me the next 2 years. I'm hoping it'll go a little faster than that, but it may take me the next 2 years. And even if it does, that's one wonderful thing about using this time now during COVID-19 is that, where will I be then 2 years from now instead of where I'm at now? It'd be so much better. And you see, the one thing I know is that once you get to that point of being able to make $1,000 and then $5,000, it quickly starts to then move on to $10,000 and $20,000 a month. And so that's what I have, because my real goal is overriding desire to make $20,000 a month, but that's several steps away. And so really the step that I can really see and feel and really do something about right now is $5,000 a month. And also then creating an online non-monogamous lifestyles academy with 100 free members and 2,000 paid members. Give me not 2,000 paid members, but 200 paid members. And so then that's another overriding desire. And then another overriding desire is to create the ECNM Financial Liberation Joint Venture Club with 1,000 free members and 200 paid members. And so what were my focuses this past week? Well, because in order to get those, to accomplish those three things, every single week I want to be doing things that are going to move me towards that end with those three things. And so I've got items that I have to sell that I'm like, I talked years and weeks in past about my bus, and I'm still working on getting that finalized. And there were things that I was storing in my bus. There was a Greyhound bus that was converted into a 35-foot motorhome. And I've got things that I was storing in that bus. Now I no longer have places to store that bus. And so I'm working every week to get those things out of my life so I don't have them hanging around my neck like an anchor holding me back. And like the bus, I had to pay rent every month for the parking space. And it's something that I can no longer drive because it doesn't have power steering. And with a shoulder injury that I had 4 years ago now, I'll never be able to really drive that long distances again. And so it's time to sell it instead of just every month paying for the parking space, which is not cheap. And so I also have a court hearing coming up that I need to prepare for. Here in Seattle, I've had a number of dealings going on. One was the lawsuit involving the shoulder injury, and that's kind of the court hearing on that was right after I got here, or right before I got here, and that's now moving forward into the next court hearing, which will be a jury trial if it gets that far before we work out something with the insurance company that the guy who hit me that he had. And so, but then now I have another court hearing going on with some legal family matters going on, and so that's going to be on. I think it's next week, in fact, or the week after that, maybe it's 2 weeks from now, and I think it's 2 weeks from now, and a week and a half. And so I've got to get prepared for that. And so that's high on my priority and my agenda. It'll take me several days of work to do in getting that prepared. It may even take me 4 or 5 days. So I want to make sure that I am getting on top of that now and not waiting. And then lastly is that I've got bookkeeping to get caught up on, and I really need to get caught up on that bookkeeping because there's crazy things going on with my money and stuff that's like, if I don't get caught up on that, like I found there was a company that recently deducted $180 out of my checking account, and I wasn't any too happy about that. They shouldn't have done that, and so they deducted it just the wrong time, and that caused me to have $70 worth of NSF charges in my account. It was a mess, and so it's because I need to get on top of my bookkeeping, and so that's just something that I'm going to have to make sure that I devote some time to now, and so that I make sure those kinds of things don't continue to happen. And so those are the three things that last week I was working to accomplish, and I didn't do anything with the bookkeeping last week. Didn't do anything last week with the preparing for my court hearing. I did do some things with getting the sale items listed and stuff. Got more to do with that, but all of those things, all three of those things, really now I've got to get focusing on those things this week, and then we're doing the same thing, focusing on next week until one by one they are able to come off that list. And so that's where things are going on right now in my life. And so you want to use this same process in order to keep your life moving forward. And I'm going to go ahead and switch back now to my screen, or stop sharing this screen and switch back then to my window. And I know that I've gone overtime again tonight. I usually try to keep these under an hour, but apologize for that. But thank you very much for sticking with me on this. And if you like the video, then if there's something here helpful to you, then give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe to my channel. And down there in the description, read about the things I got down there for you. I've got where you can subscribe to my email list. You can also take my communicate with me directly. My email address is down there. And so check out those things I've got down there for you as well. And I'll be back here next week, hopefully on time. I think this is only the second time I've ever been really late. I always try to make sure I get in by 8, no later than 8:30. But between 8 and 8:30 on Mondays, I'm right back here. And so I really want to continue to help you to liberate your life and help you to see that my life is also moving forward and being liberated. And it's the same steps, the same processes that I carry out in my life. Maybe, not the exact same things that I work on every week that you are, but it really is overall, it's the same structure and the same process that I teach you that is what worked to transform my monogamous life into an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life 13 years ago, and liberated my life so that I was able to have more satisfaction and pleasure, enjoy having more sex with more people more often. And you'll be able to have the same life. And if your life is needing liberated in one of the other areas, your health and wellness, or your work and your wealth, then I can help you with that, because it's the very same structure. And so just continue to show up every week here with me, and you'll be seeing this journey as we move forward. Again, during this time of COVID-19, it's a great time to really buckle down and get your life moving forward. And that's what I'm here to do every week. And I'll be here for the 2 years of COVID every week on Monday nights between 8 and 8:30 p.m. at Pacific time in Seattle, Washington, or in Ventura, California, Pacific time. And I'll be here every week. And then if you don't catch me live, catch me on the replay. So thanks a lot. Have yourself a great week. And go back and view this video again. There's a lot of nuggets in that video for you. Lots of great information. So view it again. Write those things down that we talked about writing down, because it really is important to have those things written down. Thanks a lot now. Until next week, we'll